He said to me going out the door, "You'll never succeed without me."
I call it FU fuel. And I'm like, bullshit is the best fertilizer. You sold for $66 million.
I was able to make over $1 million in 1 hour flat. But if you don't buy into this lesson, you're never going to be a great boss, and that is...
Barbara Corcoran's credits include straight D's in high school and college and 20 jobs by the time she was 23. But it was her next job that changed everything. She borrowed $1,000 and quit her job as a waitress to start a tiny real estate company in New York City called the Corcoran Group, which she grew to become the largest, best-known brand in the business. Barbara is the author of the bestseller Shark Tales, How I Turned $1,000 into $1 Billion Business, and hosts a podcast called Business Unusual with Barbara Corcoran. For over 11 seasons now, Barbara has been on the Emmy Award-winning show Shark Tank, investing in well over 100 businesses. Barbara, thank you so much for making time to be here. I adore you. I respect you. I admire your book, Shark Tales. This is awesome. I had so much fun reading it. We're both from Jersey.
Oh, no.
Yes. There's a lot of Jersey grit happening and so much.
Most populated state in the nation, by the way.
But I think also really cool people. We've got some
cool, some not so cool.
Some a pain in the ass.
Relatives.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Me too. Okay, let's go back to the early days. For anybody who doesn't know, can you tell us a little bit about how you got your start and how this $1,000 loan/gift launched this $1 billion business?
It was my first truly lucky break in life. I recognized it for what it was, just plain out luck. I was working my 22nd job as a waitress, and I was 23, and a man walked into the waitress and asked to sit at my counter. And he gave me a ride home, became my boyfriend. And this was Ramon Simone. And a year later, he said, "Why don't you start a real estate business? You have a great personality. I think you do really well in it." And he gave me $1,000. He took 51% of the shares, gave me 49% of the shares. He was the financer, and I was the worker. And that's what started my first real estate company until he left me for his secretary 7 years later. I was so heartbroken. It took me a year, but then I ended the business. And fortunately, I had the second lucky break of my life, which was, he said to me going out the door, "You'll never succeed without me." And I am telling you, I use those words for the next 20 years to build a giant business. I just couldn't stand the thought of him seeing me not succeed. And that drove me on every day of my work.
When he said that to you, "You're never going to make it without me," was there any part of you that was like, "Oh, wait, is he right?" Or was it an instant like for me, my Jersey version, I call it FU fuel. And I'm like, bullshit is the best fertilizer. Anyone tells me that I can't do something, I'm like, that is really my cue. Watch me. That whole thing comes out.
But you do need the cue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I spent the year leading up to the end of that business worried and doubting myself.
Yeah.
After all, he had found me in my small town. He had given me the $1,000. He took me out of New Jersey, showed me the big city. He showed me the way to make money in real estate. And then suddenly he's gone. I thought I'd be nothing without him until he said that. And then I was like a steel rod. There was no way I was going to succeed.
I love that. So one of the things I loved learning about in the book was how unbelievably smart, creative, and clever you are about creating interest and desire. Oftentimes where there is none. And for anyone, we have such a big audience of entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, established ones, people going on to their next chapter. And you did so many cool things. So I'm going to say 3 of my favorites, and then we can kind of unpack.
Nice to hear you have favorites.
Oh, wait, 2. It was the one empty desk story.
When
you were trying. Oh, I loved that. I loved the 1 bedroom plus den because as we were just talking, I'm obsessed with street easy and apartments, and it's just like my addiction. And then the 1 day, 1 price promo that was inspired by the puppy. So whichever one that you want to peel into, because I think they're also delicious.
I'll do the very first one to begin with because it's short. I never advertised for salespeople with an S on the end, and I was desperate for salespeople. I usually had 12 desks empty. I'm dying to get commissioned salespeople to sit in them, and no one was coming in until I stopped advertising immediately for salespeople, come and be with us. And people just felt like I had an unlimited supply. And then I decided to write 1 empty desk. And I got 5 times the response to my ad because everybody always wants what there's a limited supply of. And that became my way of recruiting salespeople very fast. The second one was what?
The 1 bedroom plus den story.
Most importantly, much more important than the previous story. The 1 bedroom and den really gave me such a heads up of how to advertise in real estate, or any game would apply to anything. I had one listing because my old boss allowed me to have a listing in his building to rent. And I looked at it and I compared it to all the listings in the New York Times that listed everything. That day it was like street easy. And everybody advertised the same thing: 1 bedroom, 340, 1 bedroom, 330, sunny 1 bedroom, 340, and on and on went the ads. So I went back to my old boss. I said, if you build a wall between the living room and the L and put a double frame door in there, we'll call it a 1 bedroom and den, and I'll get you $20 more a month. And I advertised $20 more a month, and the phone never stopped ringing. I ran that ad every single week for probably 5 years. I just kept getting another 1 bedroom and den to advertise. And he built those walls so fast because he got his $20 more a month. And that's called making more of something than you actually have, or positioning it smartly. And from that lesson, I learned to position everything smartly and to really examine any circumstance I was in and think, how could I do it differently? How could I do it with a gimmick? How could I do it smartly? And that always gives you 10 times more bang for your buck, which you need when you're starting a business because you're so poor, you don't have enough money to go around.
Totally. Well, I think it's so important, though, for any size business.
Yes, because especially when you're starving.
Yes, especially when you're starving. But I think also some businesses, and I'm curious your perspective on this, when they start to get success, they might get a little lazy.
Yes, very much so.
And
or they buy the help.
Yes.
Versus create their own solutions.
That's right. And they get lazy on that marketing and lazy on that creative positioning of saying, like, what do we have and how can we differentiate it? And these are like simple but magical and profitable ideas.
Yes, you're right.
The 1 day, 1 price promo. So you can set the context for this story, but I was thinking about it in sense of like, oh my God, there's all of these apartments that nobody wants, and they're sitting on the market, and they're just days and weeks and months going by. And I can't even imagine what the developers that, what everybody's thinking. And then you come up with this
1 day, 1 price sale.
Tell us what this is.
And it worked like a dream because I was able to make over $1 million in 1 hour flat.
Come on.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
This is back in, give us the year for context.
I don't really even remember, early 80s.
Okay.
But all I do remember very clearly, it was the worst real estate market I had ever seen. It was a time when interest rates were 18%.
My God.
And if you were a broker in Manhattan, you were starving and going out of business because nobody would buy anything. Right. There was no market. Then a developer and insurance company comes to me and asks me a solution to selling 88 dogs of apartments. They were the worst in the business. And there was no way to sell them. And I told them that. And fortunately, the developer said, "You're a smart girl. You'll figure it out." I felt like I couldn't disappoint him. And I came up with a theory that I imitated a puppy sale that my mother brought us to when we were kids, where the farmer, who's a smart woman, had 8 puppies and she had 20 people waiting in line to buy them from the city in fancy cars. And my mother said, "Watch that farmer woman. She's smart." She invited everyone at the same time. And all the people from the city were fighting for the puppies. Why? Because there weren't enough to go around. And that gave me the idea how to sell the units. I priced them all alike, equalized them, whether they were in the back, in the front, whether they were bigger, smaller, whether they had kitchens or not. And I said, first come, first serve. Keep it a secret. Only bring your best customer to my salespeople. I whispered it out because I had no money for advertising. And they brought their customers, the best customers. And I woke up to like 150 people waiting in line for 88 puppies or apartments. And they flew off the shelf because there weren't enough to go around. And they were all equal. So somebody was going to get a better deal than the next guy.
Isn't that amazing? Everybody wants, you have this in the book, everybody wants what everybody wants.
Yes. Always the case in sales.
I feel like I've seen that in our business. And, we do a lot of digital courses and experiences. And I've had people tell me so many times, and I've been doing this now for about 22 years. They're like, "Marie, why aren't you selling your stuff all the time? Why do you have these open and closed periods?" I'm like, because scarcity is this thing in our human psychology. And it creates interest and desire. And there's other reasons too. It's not just that. But I'm like, y'all, these are real things. They're timeless ideas that can work in any business.
I was even surprised I fell for it last night trying to choose a restaurant.
Yeah.
There were 3 restaurants. I didn't really care what I wanted to eat. I just wanted to eat. And then I noticed the one was the most crowded with people waiting in line. I got in the line.
Yeah.
Did I know anything about the restaurants? No, but I figured the crowd meant it was the best restaurant.
Yeah.
Everybody falls for it every time.
Let's talk about gut instinct, because I know that has played a big role in your success.
Sure,
it's
your
something
gut,
that,
my gosh.
I rely on it for everything.
Smart lady.
Thank you. Is there a specific example that comes to mind, whether it's recent or from your early days, where the gut instinct was like so there and maybe other people were like, no, Barbara, you're crazy. You know what I mean? Trying to get you to go where they wanted you to go, but your inner compass was like,
Probably the first thing that comes to mind is me hiring my first clunker, my first salesperson who was great at sales, but a chronic complainer. And when I sat down and interviewed her, I was really surprised because I was going to get a salesperson who had a great track record, making lots of money. I'm like, wow, wow, wow. But something about her as she's talking and smiling was bothering me. I hired her. And I soon found out what was bothering me. She was a chronic pain in the ass. She complained about everything, drove me almost to sell my business to get rid of her.
No way.
And I realized you didn't pay attention to your gut because you couldn't define what your gut was saying. And that's not important. If your gut is hesitating, that translates to no, don't do it.
Yes.
Every time in my business career when I ignored my gut, it was the wrong move. And most importantly, when I listened to my gut was when there wasn't the logic to back something up.
Yes.
Like to justify a move or a spend or something like that. But just in my gut, I felt like I had to do it. They were always the best decisions.
And, let's talk about finding and keeping the right people, actually. You queued this up perfectly. I love the story of when you were first starting to hire all of your salespeople. I felt like that system was ingenious, where you had folks come in and they were either dressed for success or not, and they either got a pencil or a pen. Can you walk us through why you did that? I feel like it was like such a callback to your amazing mother and her organizational skills.
It was an organizational skill. You're right.
Yeah.
One of the issues in hiring salespeople is no one grows up saying, I want to be a real estate salesman. They fall into it. And so you have to think of a way to cast a big net to catch a lot of people who might think about becoming a real estate salesperson. Otherwise, you don't have enough applicants. You can't sharpshoot. So you're almost just trying to get as many bodies as you can in the door. So I had a gimmick where I would advertise, learn everything you want to know about real estate. It might be for you, non-committal. And then people would come in by droves for my career nights. But the problem with it is if you get 50 people in, you have to do something with them after they leave. So I decided that if someone came in the door and they looked attractive, sounded attractive, and they seemed to have a happy disposition, I handed them a pen to sign in on my pad. And if someone came in, I handed them a pencil to sign in. So after the career night was done, the following day, of course, everybody would call you who was interested in joining your firm, which were the majority of the people, because I ran a great show for them, of course, and turned on the dog.
Yeah.
But everyone who would call, I would just look at the list, and if it was in pencil, I'd say, I'm sorry, that's been filled. If it was in pen, sure, when can you come in? So it just spun through a lot of people. So I was able to have a lot of career nights without spending a lot of time at it. You know?
And going with it's like, why waste time on the clunkers when you don't have the time and you don't have the energy and your instincts are like, no, if they can't even show up like they, give a damn, it's like, they can't represent the Corcoran group.
Yeah.
Let's talk about being the best boss. I feel like you've been praised a lot for being a great boss.
I am a great boss.
You are a great boss.
I even like myself.
I mean, this is amazing for most of us. Like to be able to get to really like ourselves and not bullshit. It's awesome. Do you have any advice for business owners who are trying to build a team and trying to become a great boss themselves?
I think there's one capital lesson that everyone who wants to be a good boss has to buy into. And if you don't buy into this lesson, you're never going to be a great boss. And that is, you have to see yourself working for the employees, not the employees working for you. The minute you think you're the boss of the employees to tell them what to do, or you're more important or more skilled or more anything, you limit your horizons. My attitude is, I have someone working with me. I will do anything in my power to get them ahead, anything in my power to keep them, anything in my power to introduce new things to them, whatever is going to make them happy. And then I don't have to worry about being a boss. They're going to love me in return. It's just about love. I know it sounds hokey, but it has a good deal to do with love and loyalty you send out first, and they give it right back to you. I've never seen an exception.
Yeah, I don't think it sounds hokey at all. I mean, it's humanity, right?
It's human nature.
It's
right?
human nature. And it's the most important thing. We're going to talk about money in a little bit, but it's like outside of quote unquote success in business and building and creating and making deals. It's, our health and our relationships. There's nothing more important.
It's where you get your greatest satisfaction. A dollar will never give you the satisfaction you hoped it would when you earn it.
Yeah.
But when people love you and you have a happy family life at work, you're getting satisfaction all the way to the bank, whether you make the money or not. It's guaranteed satisfaction.
Let's talk about when there are folks who are not so great. Like I loved the part in the book that was talking about shooting the dogs early and culling the dead wood, and that you guys had as a policy once a year, you'd cut the bottom 25% of your sales force. How important have you seen it both from your experience in the Corcoran Group, but also at Shark Tank to let go of underperformers and complainers fast?
It's as important as hiring the right people. You could try all the tricks in the book to make sure you hire the right people and be right 80% of the time, but 20% will sink your team if they're in the team and complaining and pulling the team down. So you have to let go of people quickly. I think it's equally important when you hire someone to be extremely clear on what your expectation is. My expectation was very simple. Make a deal within 3 months or you're not meant for the real estate sales business. So they knew they had 3 months to make a deal or it was over. Most people I hired who couldn't make a deal fired themselves before I even had to fire them. But for those few that didn't, we, meaning my managers and myself, would meet with them and say, well, I'm so sorry. You know what the rule was? You haven't made 3 months, so we have to move on. Now, there are exceptions to every rule. Sometimes there's someone who has so much capability and you feel it in your gut, but they had a rough or a slow start. Then you make an exception, say, take another 3 months. What the heck?
Yeah.
And you don't fire the person. But for the great majority of people in business, if you know how to hire expertly, but you're not keyed on firing quickly, you'll never have a really big business. Because what happens is I used to think if someone isn't producing, that money that I'm spending on the overhead is taken out of the pockets of the productive salespeople. I can't promote as well. I can't buy them as many gifts. I can't push them ahead. I can't get them more assistance because it's being drained by the people who aren't able. So I used to do it to protect my good people. I felt like the mother. I had to get my good kids to get ahead, you know?
Yeah. No,
and
totally.
so I had no issue with firing people. Yeah.
Any tips around that? Because I think firing people, obviously, it's difficult and you want to do it with respect and with compassion and with a sense of humanity. Is there anything that you would share for someone listening right now or watching thinking like, God, any advice?
I would never fire anyone without giving them some careful thought to what they'd really be good at. And I usually had some good ideas as to what they'd really be good at. Sales is an unusually difficult business. Very few people can really sell on a commission basis. But I would watch the person before I fire them, talk to the manager, hear them on the conversation on the phone and think, what would I picture them succeeding with? And so when I sat down with them to tell them it wasn't working out, they weren't meant for sales, I was honest. You have to be brutally honest. Let me tell you why it's not working out. Not like you're no good, but let me tell you what skills are involved that are difficult for you to attain. However, those skills would really apply to this business, and this business, because it's a key skill that you do have. And why would you, I'm happy to act as your endorser. Just use me in all your references, put me first, and I would always endorse them. And so they would leave my office. My partner Esther used to say, when you fire people, Barbara, they leave your office looking like they got promoted. But in a way, they did get promoted out of the business onto something they could do well.
Yeah.
And they left like excited, ready to try the new thing that they were into.
I think that's worth a gajillion dollars right there. I know that's kind of an overstatement, but it is because people, it's so important for relationships. I was talking about this on my team. There's people that I'm doing business with that I was like, oh my God, I've known them for 20 something years. It's like my accountant, when I was a bartender waiting tables trying to start this business, he's still doing my taxes.
Yeah.
You know,
loyalty.
And you never know how your universes are going to collide again in the future. So thank you for that.
Do you know, I can tell you that many times during the real estate business, it's an up-down business. You're always going out of business on the down cycles, always out of business. Come so close, you owe out money. And you know, all your suppliers will stay with you. All the people you do business with, if you're loyal, they always worked along with you. They got me through the recessions, not me, but they got me through the recessions, willing to wait for their money because of my loyalty to them and their loyalty back. It's so important if you're going to build a business.
Let's talk about when you sold. You sold for 66 million.
My lucky number.
Your lucky number. And I love that. I feel like someone, right? There was a suitor who wanted to offer you 22 and you're like, nope, 66 is my number. And
66 is better than 22.
Oh, it's a hell of a lot better. I'm all into it. So you were writing about in the book, when you saw that money in your account, you shared that you would be absolutely crazy not to feel on top of the world, but you felt sad. So I'm going to share your words here. I was running around with a deep sadness and I didn't know how to fix it. What was that experience like? Because anyone listening to us right now going like, OMG, 66 million, you just sold your company, you're seeing all that in your bank account. And
why would you be sad?
Yeah.
I'll tell you why I would be sad, because money was never my God. It was great having 66 million and I would never give it back. So I love having 66 million and everything it brings to you. But I wasn't aware, I didn't pause to think what I would lose. And I thought, I'm selling the business, but I should have defined what the business was. What I had done is I sold my family. I had sold the 1,000 people I had trained, hired, loved me, did special events with me, were always with me all along the way for those 15, 17 years I was building the business. I sold my notoriety. Every press person in town was calling me because I was so good at publicity. They leaned on me for numbers that they wanted, for comments they wanted. I sold the notoriety and my family. And without the notoriety, I felt unimportant, as ashamed as I am to admit that. I love people adoring me and asking me for my opinion.
Yeah.
And without my family, what was I going to do? Talk to the wall?
Yeah.
It was just terrible. So I really regretted selling the business almost immediately. It was a very, very hard vacuum to fill.
How long was that period after? Because I can only imagine the soul searching. Like, I love my work so much. And sometimes when I've felt either exhausted or burnt out or run myself ragged or just lost some spark of what makes me so excited about what I do, I'm like, well, I don't quote unquote have to work anymore. And then I go in that and I'm like, oh shit, no. I was like, abso-freaking-lutely not.
Yeah.
Because I love the act of creation. So I'm just curious what that kind of next period was like for you. Was it like a few years before you're like, okay, here's how Barbara's back. Like, this is your next chapter.
I wasn't back so fast in people's minds, but I was getting back in my own mind.
Yeah.
What I had decided to do is reinvent myself. What else could I do other than run a real estate brokerage firm? And I knew one topic only, real estate. That was a starting point. I wasn't going to be an expert on vacuum cleaners or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so I held my expertise in real estate. And I thought what I really liked most about my business was the notoriety with the publicity. And what I really liked well about my business was having an audience. I love having people adore me. So I decided to go into the TV business because they have large audiences. And I made my subject real estate, everything about real estate. And as luck would have it, almost immediately after I sold the Corcoran group, or within a year, the market folded. And if there's one thing that really does well in media, is bad news.
Yeah.
So I was on every week, bad news, the morning talk shows, and I was paid and got to be a correspondent. And that reinvented my field. And so I went from there up the ladder to build more notoriety as an expert on TV. And then I switched it to the entrepreneur space when I was able to do it. You know, I got very good advice from Barbara Walters on The View one morning. It was right after I sold my business. I was sitting there talking about real estate, which they hired me to do. And after the show, she said to me, what are you going to do now that you sold your business? I'd be curious. I said, I've had it with real estate. I've done it my whole life. I'm going to be an expert in entrepreneurship. She said, no more real estate, she said. And I said, no more real estate. She said, wait till someone climbs up your real estate tree and takes it. You'll see how much you like real estate. Whoa! I got right back on real estate. Good advice, right?
Yes.
And I became a real estate expert, and that's what got me to climb the tree, whereas I was going to give it up and redefine myself perfectly in a different field. What a waste of time that would have been.
Isn't that cool? That kind of comes back to that conversation. Like, for me, it's the FU fuel, right?
Yes.
When somebody, like, I remember had in the
She
early
spotted
days.
it.
Oh, yes. And it's like a fire inside. And there was a period of time where I was questioning, like, well, that's not really the healthiest of motivations. And I'm like,
it's not healthy.
but it works.
It works.
And
That's
I'm
right.
like, you know what? If it works for this one, I'm like, I don't need to understand it. I'm going to use it.
You got it.
Let's talk about money a little bit more, because I think you shared in here that you've been good at making money, but not so great at keeping it. And
No,
that
how do you
when
keep money, who knows?
yeah, when you sold the company, that you actually missed worrying about money and all the creative things you had to do and dream up in order to get it.
Yeah.
So you've made a lot, you've invested a lot, you've spent a lot, lost a lot. What are your thoughts and attitudes and beliefs towards money, and have they changed over your career?
They really haven't changed. They're mostly my mother's attitude toward money. You know, she raised 10 kids with no money, and somehow it all worked out. She never worried about money a day in her life. And there were periods of time when my dad didn't work for months because he was always fired because he was insubordinate in his job, even though he was a capable man and great at his work. He was always fired. And my mother had more reasons to worry about money feeding 10 kids than anybody else in probably the whole state of New Jersey, but she never worried. Her attitude was money is meant to be spent. So we waited our turn every 10 years, believe it or not. One of us got to go to the dentist. Every Christmas, we all got new pajamas. Every 3 years, one of the girls got a new doll. So she had a system. But she never worried or gave a moment's thought to what she was short on. When I was going out of business one year and I had written my goodbye speech to my salespeople, I had tried everything and I had a huge overhead with 6 offices. I had no way of digging my way out of the hole. My mother happened to call me on a Sunday night, and I'll never forget it. And she said, "You sound distracted." I said, "I am distracted. I'm having a sales meeting in a week, and I'm announcing that we're closing the business because I owed like $800,000 to the ad agency. I owed this, I owed that." And she said, "You're not worrying about money, are you?" I said, "Of course I'm worried about money." And she said, "What a waste of time."
Oh,
and just saying, "What a waste of time," took it off my shoulders. And I said, "It is. What am I accomplishing worrying?" And I don't know what the idea was I thought of at that juncture, but I did think of some idea that kept us in business for another couple of months. And then we saw the light shine in the real estate business and we made it around the turn.
I love how you said, and none of one of these times that I was going out of business, because that's the reality. We're like, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to make it.
Doesn't work.
Yeah. Let's talk about goals. I loved when you talked about when there were suitors circling your business in the early days. You said no one asked you what your dreams or your aspirations were before they started their pitch. And if they did, they would have discovered that your goals had nothing to do with money, status, or power. So I want to know, I'm curious what your goals do have to do with, and what are some dreams and aspirations you have now?
The dreams and aspirations probably have changed because I have less time in this world. So you have to, of course, alter your aspirations to the timetable. But I think what it's always turned me on, and that hasn't changed at all, is the joy of working with a team, seeing how far you could go. Seeing really how far you could go, how much of a change you could make in people's lives, because that's what gives you the satisfaction. I find if you do a good job on that, the money takes care of itself. I've had bad times, of course, but I've also had years where I've made a shitload of money.
Yeah.
And it's kind of by happenstance. I wasn't planning it. It's nice to have. I usually try to spend it before I ever hit the office. But in the end, the whole thing that turns me on is really the joy of this and the satisfaction of working with people toward a common God. And the God was never money. It was always, how far can we go? Let's see where we go around this corner. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah. And I like change. And that always kept me looking at the next page instead of the page I was standing on, you know.
So I had shared with you when we were getting dolled up right before we turned on the cameras
today, all dolled up.
Oh, I think we look fabulous.
22 at most.
Not even, right? So I want to talk about your friggin' penthouse, because when you were working as a messenger, I love this story. Will you tell the story and how you saw it? And the lady said, when you're like, "I'll buy it," and one day, and she laughed at you. You walk us through that?
Yeah, of course. A short story. I was working as a messenger while I owned the Corcoran group because we were in yet another bad time. And what was great about being a messenger, you could work at night. You could work any hours. I worked around my day job. And I delivered a message, envelope, to a lady who lived on 97th and 5th. And she opened the door and I saw behind her green, beautiful park views through a big window. I'm like, and now I had seen apartments my whole life, but I had never been so awestruck by the suddenness of the green in the park right there framing her.
Yes.
And I said, "If you ever sell this place, would you give me a call?" Well, she didn't see me as Barbara Corcoran, the broker, because I didn't have a lot of notoriety then. She saw me as a messenger girl. And she said, "I'll be buried." "Sure, I'll be buried in this place. I'm never selling it." And that was that. I delivered the messenger. I had a sign for it. I left trying to get another peek before I left. And then, of course, she called me. It was, I don't know how many years later, maybe 13 years later, she called me and she said, my apartment's for sale. Remember me? I said, it's never left my mind. And I went and I bought the apartment. She overcharged me, of course, $3 million more than it was listed for, but I had to have it.
Yeah.
And I haven't regretted a single day. It is by far, in my opinion, honestly, the most beautiful apartment in New York. It's a dream apartment.
I mean, I saw the video of it and I was drooling. I was telling you, I am obsessed. And I have space. I'm obsessed with space and with feeling and energy and vibe.
It makes a difference.
It makes a difference. And I'm also obsessed with trees. And so I live in the West Village and we need a little bit more space. And all of my best friend and my partner, Josh, he's like, nothing is good enough for you. I said, it's a feeling.
Nothing will be ever good enough for you.
It's only when I have this certain, I'm like, I am patient AF. Like I ain't going anywhere. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, It will come up and I'll look for it. So when I heard this story, I was like, yes, Barbara, you put that out there.
The revenge of the nerd.
Yes. Yes. Let's talk about Shark Tank for a little bit and the power of picking good people. Mm-hmm. You say there are 3 traits that you look for in people when you're choosing to do business with them. What are those traits?
I actually have more than 3. I don't know which 3 you're referencing.
I'll tell you my 3 and then you tell me the add-ons because the book came out a little earlier. Good character.
Not as important anymore.
Oh, good. Oh, this is an updated list. I like this. Enthusiasm.
Very important.
Sense of thankfulness.
Very important.
Okay.
But they would not be my top 3.
What are the tops?
What I have learned by investing in businesses in Shark Tank and looking at the ones that succeed very well and the ones that don't succeed, the majority don't succeed after you fund them, it comes down to the entrepreneur. So what I look for, I really shop for a people. That hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. But the traits I'm always looking for is number 1, by far, ambition. If someone's not dreaming about being a somebody, if somebody doesn't want more for themselves in life, there's nothing that's going to happen that gives them more in life than their own dream. So I really want a dreamer with ambition, like the desire, the teeth to want to get in there and get it, and that ambition is phenomenally important. You don't ever get to the top of the heap without it. The second thing, which is related, it's like a kissing cousin, is the ability to handle rejection or put downs or failures or knockdowns. I almost think of great entrepreneurs, exactly. I think of this all the time, like a jack in the box that you push the head down, he pops back up when you twist. He should have laid down because you're going to smack him again. He pops back up. So I'm always looking for that in an entrepreneur. My entrepreneurs that are wildly successful, I have to tell you, know how to get back up. I know how to get back up. I got the job on Shark Tank because they hired me, then rejected me 3 days before I was going out there. After I told all my friends I was going to Hollywood and bought my new outfits and new luggage and everything. Then they told me they weren't having me out there. They never signed the contract. I was like, what? But then I wrote an email immediately to Mark Burnett. I took about a second to feel sorry for myself, and I did feel sorry for myself. Then I wrote an email to him why he should invite me out and why I consider his rejection a lucky charm. And I sent him that brief email, and I was invited out to compete for the seat with another female, which he told me he had another woman who replaced me. I said, let me compete with her. I competed and won the seat. I've been on Shark Tank 15 years. I just believe that ability to come back up is so important. That combined with ambition, you could throw the rest aside. They're all important. Thankfulness, my partners, if they're not thankful when there's a lot of money on the table, they're different people. Mm-hmm. I don't have that because I really pick thankful people. But I could do without the thankfulness if I made a ton of money on a sale. Yeah. And I love the people, and they had the ambition, and they had the ability to get back up. Those are the 2 important traits, really.
Are there any favorites? I mean, you've invested in so many businesses. Are there any that just stand out for you, whether it was from the return on the investment, the business itself, or the actual entrepreneur?
Well, the return on the investment is the sweetener that helps you love somebody. Mm-hmm. If you're making a lot of money, like, for example, I think Mark Cuban is more handsome than the other sharks, but I think it's because he has more billions. I'm not quite sure. So the money does affect my view of things. Does. However, what we have favorites. Mothers have favorites. Ask any mother if she has a favorite. She'll say no. Get her drunk. She'll tell you who her favorite is.
Yeah.
We all have favorites. My favorites are people that, I love the Cousins Maine Lobster. Better to give you examples. I love the Cousins Maine Lobster because the 2 guys are flirts. They always tell me I look beautiful.
Yes.
They tell me dirty jokes. They hee hee ha. We have a drink together. We have a ball. So I'm delighted they're so successful. But I love them because they make me feel good.
Yes.
Yeah,
and they're fun to be with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I respect them because they are hustlers from the get-go, and they have those two important traits. You slam Saban and Jim, the two principals, on the head as often as you want. You make them stronger. They're just that kind of a guy. They're great businessmen. So they're my favorites. Then I fall for a lot of favorites that are single women struggling, usually single moms with nothing in their hands to build a business with. I stay with them the longest because they become my favorites simply because they're trying so hard.
Yeah.
And they have the least going for them.
Yeah.
So yes, you do play favorites for sure. Or I do with Shark Tank, no doubt about it.
Staying in the know, like you've invested in so many businesses over time. What do you do to stay ahead of the curve? And how do you know what might be the next big thing? Is it really about the person and less about the industry or the business?
I have no idea what the next big thing is. I stick with my knitting.
Yeah.
I like to stick with business that's described that I understand. Describe a pizzeria to me, I know how it works. You get to give them money and you get a slice of pizza, you know?
Yeah.
If there is something very sophisticated in a field I know nothing about, I will buy it if I understand the entrepreneur. If I don't really get the entrepreneur, I steer clear of it. If there's a technology business that Mark Cuban's really excited about, that would be an exception. I usually jump in the deal with him because he knows that space better than I do. And if he's excited, I'm excited. But with that rare exception, I just choose the entrepreneurs. And that's really the way I think to choose businesses, to build businesses, to choose people. I think there's nothing more important. You have the right people, you can go as far as you want. If you have the wrong people, you'll be held back forever.
You know, in business and life, especially in business all the time, the shiitake hits the fan. Things go upside down.
That's a great one. Shiitake hits the fan?
The shiitake hits the fan.
You haven't had any Japanese rebellion over that phrase?
No. I'm so spicy and salty and saucy. You can write in. You can be, Dear Marie, terrible. But I'm curious because you've navigated so much. I mean, I don't know if we'll have time, but I loved in the book you were talking about, like you need to bully back a bully.
Oh, yeah.
And when a certain someone, Mr. Trump, tried to weasel his way out of a $4 million commission owed to y'all, you were like,
yeah,
we getting our commission, we're getting our money. What do you do to stay level-headed when just things go sideways or things go upside down? Are there any lessons you can share?
I'm able to go to a quiet place, and very often the quiet place involves rage, which probably isn't a healthy way to be. For example, when the Donald didn't want to pay me that large commission that he owed me, I went to a quiet place right away. I didn't get angry. I just, in my stomach, got rage. It's unfair, the unfairness of it. And fortunately for me, I didn't have that many great real estate years because I always spent the money before it came in. But I happened to have made $1 million that year, which never happened to me before. So I spent $500,000 on a top-notch attorney to sue and win the case. And there were so many people that were in the same position as I who didn't have the money to hire a top-notch attorney. And boy, was I thankful that happened that year and I was able to defeat him. I wouldn't have with the best attorney. Interesting thing, it's the only attorney I've ever hired.
Really?
Honest to God, I've done transactional attorneys looking over contracts, something like that. But never in a lawsuit have I hired an attorney. And you know what I found in short order? I interviewed every top attorney in New York, every law firm partner in New York. I get my hands on litigators. And I said, how would you win the case? And most of the litigators had 3 or 4 ways they would win the case. And I hired the guy who had one way. He said, simple, I'll do this. And it sounded right to me, and that's who I hired. And that's what won the case, clarity. So I even learned a great lesson. I think if I had to hire another attorney, I'd be great at hiring the right one because clarity is what I learned about hiring an attorney. Because it's hard to size up an individual who has an expertise, not your own.
Right.
But not difficult to size up an individual with your common sense. And clarity is a big one.
So that feeling, so when things go sideways for you, letting yourself feel, and I think, rage is a human emotion, right? We have such a wide, we don't want to necessarily hang out there all the time.
No, you want to deal with it.
You want to feel it and then, use it for fuel.
I used to tell my husband only last night.
Yeah. I love it.
I shouted at him for 5 minutes straight.
And then you got it out and then you're like, okay, I'm done. Yeah, no, I get fiery too. Josh is like, where's this coming from? I'm like, give me 3 minutes. It'll be over. Perseverance. You wrote, every big success happens after I think I've exhausted 100% of my options. For me, success only happens after I gave another 10%. If there is a struggling entrepreneur watching right now and considering giving up, and I know this is kind of a big, broad thing and we would need to know the details, it'd be impossible to answer, but what would you tell someone about perseverance?
I would ask them how many times they've tried, whether they can possibly still live another month to have enough space to try one more thing. And then I would have them meet with everybody who's working with them or associates or anybody, even people off the street, and sit down and brainstorm. What else can I try? There's always something else. And in business, it's not really like a science. With the science, you pick the option that's more likely to give you the results you want. I don't find that's the case in real estate. I think the world belongs to the hustler who tries everything. And if you could just try any old thing, just smash it up against the board, something is going to give. I think the people who persevere and win always in the end are those people who had tried that extra 10%. I really do. I don't think you should ever reach a point where you say, I should probably give up, or there's nothing else, because there's always something else. There's always some giving, some angle, some way of looking at it, but very often you're too close to see it. And I like to back out and brainstorm to get ideas. And very often I won't use that idea, but that idea will give me another idea that I'll move on. And it's always the winner after you think the battle's over. It's a shame. It's like God doesn't have a sense of humor. Like you didn't try hard enough. I'm going to make you really crawl, But I think there's nothing to be gained by giving up unless they shoot you dead, and then you have an excuse to be giving up, I guess.
Yeah, you're just going to go to sleep.
Yeah.
You're taking a dirt nap, as my friend calls it. So you're amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I hear you have something awesome and new, a way for people to get more of this spice and wisdom and smarts.
Of course. You're talking about Barbara in your pocket.
Yes, I am.
You could sign up to be one of my followers, my disciples, or my friend, or just a colleague or a teammate, however you want to do it. But what I do is I give great advice to entrepreneurs. I know I do, because they always give me feedback on how it changed their life. So I've come up with a system where I help as many people as I can through Barbara in Your Pocket. I do seminars with the questions and answers, answer their individual questions, give them motivational advice. I deal with all the crap that entrepreneurs do when they're building a business. Half the people I get out of the gate, they're not even in business and they're afraid. I get rid of the fear right away and I push them out the gate to get them started. But what I love about Barbara in Your Pocket is these are like-minded souls that I love. It's replaced my Corcoran group people in a way. I love them and they love me back, and I help them. And how smart have I gotten listening to their very sophisticated questions and things they're going through? It's kept me up to date with everything going on in business. So it's just a loving relationship that seems to take care of itself, and it just works like a dream. And I enjoy it, most importantly.
Anything else you want to leave us with today?
You look very pretty. I bet you're only about 25.
Oh,
I lie. 35.
Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.